Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Joe Patrick on Football. Our first excited, maybe, post-game after a win here at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, where the Falcons beat the Commanders 34 to 27 in an exciting game. First 30 burger we see from the Falcons offense, which really showed up basically for the first time this season. Not maybe to the full extent after having talked to some of the players of what they think it can be, but at least for the most part, what you would expect this Falcons offense to be. One that pushes the ball downfield, one that's really exciting in the run game and effective in the run game, and is relatively competent in the red zone. We saw a lot of that today. It was mostly almost all positive things for the Falcons today, again, in this win that gets them to 2-2, heading into the Week 5 bye, an early bye. Bijan Robinson said in the postgame, he wishes maybe they didn't have a bye and they could just kind of keep this good feeling going, but, it is what it is. We knew that this was something the Falcons were going to have to contend with, and, at least it gets A.J. Terrell an extra week of rest, maybe potentially one of the reasons why he didn't go on IR is because he was going to get that extra week coming up this coming week, and hopefully they get him back for a big night game against the Bills on Monday Night Football coming off of that bye week. So let's get into some of just the quick reactions from the game today. First of all, a huge bounce back from Michael Penix in this game. Throws for a career high 313 yards. Again, it's only 7 starts that he's made in his career, but still a really impressive day from him. 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, but some really nice touchdown plays. I particularly like the design that went to Kyle Pitts that was right in this end zone that we're standing at, where right over there Kyle Pitts leaks out, does a little chip and leak out, and Penix is able to hit him. Also a touchdown catch, a nice kind of timing route from Drake London early in the game. And, Michael Penix was generally dangerous with the ball. And that was, a big question mark we had about him was, where is this downfield passing that we had grown accustomed to seeing? I know I had during training camp, and any of you guys who were out there at training camp certainly saw him pushing the ball down the field. And I think that one of the reasons why he was able to do that more so today than he has previously is because it looked to my eye like the Commanders were coming out still playing in like what Dan Quinn is kind of accustomed to with the cover 3 looks and the single high safety looks, which frankly Michael Penix had not gotten in the first 3 games so far of the season. He was getting a lot of, as Zach Robinson has described before, those 2 high safety looks. And teams really daring the Falcons to run the ball. Interestingly, in this game, partially because the Commanders just don't have a great defensive, Falcons were able to run the ball sufficiently, as well as be able to attack that cover 3, and we saw Michael Penix be able to do that to great extent. And I got to just give an extra shout out to both Penix and just the rest of the offense, I guess, with the 3rd and 4th down execution, especially late in the game, the drive that led to a field goal that really kind of put this thing out of reach, gave them a 10-point lead. They converted on several 3rd downs that were very important because that allowed them to chew up extra clock. You didn't know how much clock was going to be chewed on that drive, and then you get the first 3rd down. It's like, okay, well, that's good. We're at least going to get a couple minutes off here. Then you get another 3rd down. Then you get another 3rd down on a spectacular throw and catch from Michael Penix to Drake London on this sideline down here. That really just showed the skills of both those guys. It was a great throw and a great catch. That's what you needed in that situation. And the Falcons were also able to execute on 4th down earlier in the game. It was a key 4th down. Now, it wasn't perfect, of course, in these situations. You're never going to be perfect on 3rd down, 4th down. But in general, it was pretty good and clearly an improvement, a massive improvement from what we saw last week. I thought Michael Penix's mechanics looked a lot better generally. I'm not a quarterback expert, but you could just see that he didn't really have his feet underneath him on a lot of those throws that happened in Carolina, and it was much better what was happening today. Also, major change today, Zach Robinson moving down to the field, as was highlighted on the TV broadcast. And, talking to several of the players after the game, we talked to Drake, we talked to Bijan. I wasn't in the press conference for Michael Penix. I don't know exactly what he said, but it sounds like it basically got, great, not respect, but the players loved him. I think the players really appreciated Zach being down there, not because of anything that for no other reason than that they were able to go up to him and be able to work some things out. If they needed to kind of, talk about a particular thing, about a route, about the way that they're doing a run play, they're just able to have some of those small conversations and be able to just have some of those little detailed moments with their offensive coordinator. And, I thought that plays out on the eye. I also thought that just generally the offensive operation was much better today. You know, they didn't have any of the delay of games. I mean, they had one, but that was intentionally taken on a punt that was near midfield. So, you know, there just weren't any mistakes in that respect. But on top of there not being any mistakes, there was also just, it was actually, I think, a benefit to them that they were getting to the line much quicker, it seemed like, to my eye, versus what they were in Carolina. Giving themselves plenty of time to kind of assess the defense, assess the situation, maybe have a visualization of what was going to happen on the play, and it was generally good. So good marks from Zach Robinson being down the field. Didn't seem to affect the, you know, the play calling in any particular way. It was still the same Falcons pistol offense that we've become accustomed to seeing here. These, you know, well, really ever since Zach Robinson took over as offensive coordinator, and it worked. And even Tyler Algier had a great run. I was joking about it on Twitter, but you know, Tyler Algier finds the end zone towards the end of this game on a counter that was run out of pistol, something you don't see too often. I can't remember. I was going to tweet that that was the first time he's ever called that play. Then I decided not to because I wasn't sure about it. But it's the first time I can remember him calling a counter play, particularly out of pistol, just something you don't see very often. They ran that same stretch action, and it wasn't perfect. Tyler Algier did that to stiff arm someone off of him in the backfield, but once he was able to do that, there was a ton of green grass ahead of him to run into. So that was great to see. Just them mixing it up in the run game a little bit and being able to do everything they want to do effectively out of the pistol formation. In terms of what was negative in this game, I would say on the offensive side of the ball, it was, you know, an interception that Michael Penix threw down here to open Drake London, just underthrew that ball. We've seen him complete that same exact pass, by the way. The one that sprung to my mind was one he had, I believe, to Darnell Mooney against the Giants in his NFL debut. That was almost a carbon copy of that play, where he just tries to throw it right over that zone defender. This one doesn't get over that zone defender. Mike Sandustroll is able to pick it off. But other than that, I thought it was like pretty clean overall. Not a whole lot of complaints from the offense. Again, the run game really getting going. Really liked the combination of Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. Bijan Robinson also finds the end zone in this game in spectacular fashion. I mean, it was an absolutely ridiculous run. He has a massive jump cut, you know, coming into the line. Then he's able to use some contact balance to somehow pick up, I forget how long the run was, maybe somewhere around 10 yards or something like that, but it just didn't seem like there was really anything on that run that he would have been happy to get back to the line of scrimmage. And he's able to just find these holes where it doesn't even look like there's a hole there, and he's able to find it. You know, it's funny if you pay attention to the media that happens. Bijan was talking the other day about the fact that he watches highlight videos of some of the great running backs before he goes out to practice, before he goes out and plays the games. And I asked him, I said, just based upon that jump cut, was that Barry Sanders today? And he did say yes, it was Barry Sanders who he was watching before the game today. And he said he usually either watches Barry Sanders or LaDainian Tomlinson, tries to go out and emulate those moves. So I got to say, I give him good marks. I would say it's a 9.5 out of 10 on the jump cut behind the line of scrimmage. Then and definitely better than Barry Sanders on the contact balance and the ability to power through and score a touchdown there. And then a nice little handspring too when he was in the end zone, jumped up. He was joking that Drake London came up to him afterwards, kind of noting the handspring. And he said, "You're on something, man. I don't know." But that's pretty funny. But then also, getting Tyler Algier involved too was huge in this game. I thought to just have that combination of those two guys. You always feel like it can work really nicely where you have this one explosive, agile back, and then you come back with Tyler Algier, who Chris Lindstrom talked about a couple weeks ago after the win against the Vikings, where the team was really strong in the run game, and he just said that Tyler Algier is one of the best he's seen at reading the track of that outside zone and taking what's there, and then adding more to the carry with the power that he has and the fact that he runs behind his pads. And I think that one of the things that Algier doesn't get enough credit for, actually, because he is this power runner, is his explosive ability, his ability to pick up big could be touchdowns, but just explosive plays, because he can hit those outside zones so hard and he attacks that hole. And he's got a little bit of that. We've talked about this in the offseason, but he's got a little bit of that Derrick Henry, in him, where it's like guys have to think twice before they go and stick their face mask into Tyler Algier when he's got that head of steam on that outside zone. And we saw him, be elusive and find this end zone right here on that counter play that we discussed. So I just thought it was a great way to kind of get them both involved. Other positive on the offense, Kyle Pitts. Again, we talked about him scoring the touchdown here, but he came up huge in some moments, particularly on one of those third down conversions on that final offensive series, the true offensive series, not the knees. Catching a ball despite being interfered with on that opposite sideline, right behind me over my shoulder here, just would played like a man, it was great. I think that's what a lot of Falcons fans have been wanting to see from Kyle Pitts. And it's not that he hasn't shown it before, but it's just great to see him get involved, have a quarterback that's willing to throw him the ball in some of those instances. I think he's doing a great job creating separation on some of those plays. I think that he's getting, frankly, more separation than he has in the last couple of years. And I have to think that a lot of that is down to the fact that he is healthier, that knee he looks really good. He just looks like he's moving differently and more explosively, and the hands are there, and he's making great catches. Great to see him getting involved in like that, and I think he can do a lot more too. And just generally speaking, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but just this team's ability to pass the ball downfield, to kind of force the Commanders to have to protect all these different areas of the field. Thought ultimately it opens up some of this underneath stuff. Again, it's all it's team ball. It's you run to set up the pass, but then once you get the pass going, that's going to soften up things for the running game to get going, and then it just it all starts to work. And that's how it felt today. It just felt like pretty much everything for the Falcons offense was working. Again, it wasn't like every play or even every series, but generally speaking, it felt like the team was able to move the ball pretty effectively, and that's reflected in the fact that they get their first 30 burger of the year. And that's, I think, what's going to be the biggest talking point coming out of this game is just all the things that happened offensively. Defensively, it was a little more hit and miss. Obviously, the Commanders come into this game without Jaden Daniels, without a lot of their playmakers on the outside. Terry McLaurin, Noah Brown, both out. So there was less for the Falcons to contend with, and they contended with it okay. They ultimately sacked Mariota twice. They do limit Mariota to about 156 yards passing, I believe it was, and a lot of that coming in some soft situations, whether it be like at the end of a half where they're trying not to give up a big play, or like toward the end of the game. They have some penalties, though, that help move the Commanders down the field that hurt. But, I thought outside of the sack numbers, which could have been higher, they were getting pressure. And I thought that they were doing it mostly responsibly. They did let Mariota escape, I believe, in like the third or fourth quarter, sometime in the second half. He picked up a big third down conversion, picked up a big gain running. But that was the only time he was really able to effectively use his legs that I can recall. Other than that, they kept him penned in, which was nice. And, the Falcons are also down, some players on defense without, a player like A.J. Terrell, who's obviously really important for them. So thought it was a pretty good showing for this Falcons defense. Xavier Watts gets his second interception of the season with a nice just kind of tracking a ball that was, down the seam. And I know Falcons fans were hitting me in my X replies that, we've seen Mariota kind of float that ball a little too high before, and that's exactly what happened. He actually had a receiver there, I forget who it was, but down in that end zone, he basically had a guy, had he kind of rocketed one in, maybe if he had a Michael Penix-like arm, but he puts too much air into that ball, and Xavier Watts able to just track it down, catch it over the shoulder, and good for Watts to be able to, again, show that ball hawking ability. Watts didn't have a perfect game, but again, if he can create those moments, if he can get those interceptions, those turnovers, then that's what you're basically asking him to do. The main negative, I would say, for this Falcons defense was in the defensive run game. They did get gashed a couple times, particularly hurt early in this game. Happened right after they scored a touchdown, I believe. I can't remember if it was to go up 7-0, but it's just right after you have this big moment, you give up a big run, and then you're immediately under pressure on the other side. Can't remember how those drives particularly turned out for the Commanders, but I know one of them was a big return as well, and that leads us to the special teams, which was, once again, I think a pretty big frustration for a lot of Falcons fans. There was just some ill discipline or mental errors that were occurring. You do get Jamal Agnew back, and that solved a lot of the problems you were having with regards to the return game. They didn't have any of the issues with catching the footballs on the kickoffs. Having said that, the Commanders don't have a knuckleball kicker quite like the Panthers had that caused some of those problems. But There was the one in particular that they didn't get punished for because I believe there was a flag on the play or it didn't factor in. But D'Angelo Malone just like kicks a ball that was fair caught, and then Jamal Agnew left to bounce. Way after the play, like there was no real reason to be anywhere near that. And I know that he was getting blocked while that happened, but that's not really an excuse. That would have been a live ball had it either, I can't remember if there was a penalty on the play or the Falcons just recovered it. I believe the Falcons recovered it anyways, but regardless, that was, you could say, oh, well, he's getting blocked into it. Well, it doesn't matter because it still would have been a fumble. So, that's just, you just got to know, like, follow the ground or something. Like, there's no reason. There should be better, I don't know if it's communication from Jamal Agnew and yelling Peter. It's typically that was what they typically yell when you're telling your teammates to get away from the ball. And once you hear that, you gotta like go to the sideline, like just get the hell away from it. And it was frustrating to see that happen to D'Angelo Malone, who is one of this team's key special teamers. And they did not have Kadero Hodge in this game; he was missing, but Casey Washington did fill in on the gunner duty. And the good news, one more negative on the special teams, which was the kick coverage was poor. I know. I didn't check the final numbers, but I know at least through three, by the time that Washington had 3 kick returns, they were averaging 39 yards per kick return on those. That's unsustainable. You will get punished by an offense that has more of their weapons than the Commanders had today. You just can't have that. So that's going to be something that the Falcons have to clean up. On the good news, on special teams, Parker Romo, 2 for 2 on his kicks. Neither of them were particularly long. I think the longest was 38, but hey, he made the kicks, made the extra points, and at the end of the day, that's all you're asking for is him to make when he's called upon. So overall, again, a good day for the Falcons. They win it by a touchdown over the Commanders. They go into the bye at 2-2. I know a lot of people were predicting that the 2 games the Falcons would have won to this point would have been against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and against the Carolina Panthers. So it is a little bit of a hole that the Falcons are in, considering the division record is 0-2. Those are the 2 teams you ultimately lose to. But you win against the Commanders, who, we thought they would have Jaden Daniels coming into the year. They didn't, obviously, in this game. That helped them win. But then they also won, on the road in prime time against the Minnesota Vikings. So 2 big wins, 2 losses. However, whichever way you slice it, you're probably feeling decent if you're the Falcons at this point. Again, I said this on the radio, but I just want to reiterate that, with this team kind of bouncing back after last week's poor performance, I'm not particularly shocked that this happened. Like, I think that this is something that we've seen this Falcons team do, several times over the course of the, since I've been covering the team. And they've not quite lost in the fashion that they did last week. But when they've had poor performances, they're able to bounce back. What this team has not done consistently enough is when they have a good performance to then kick on and have another good performance or an improved performance, an even better performance. That's going to be the challenge for this team. And if they're not able to do that, then they won't make the playoffs. But if they can start to do that at some point during this middle stretch of the season when we think that they should have, several winnable games, maybe some of them don't look as much of a winnable game as they may have previously, where you look at a team like the Colts, who are playing really well coming into week 4 3-0. But regardless, the Falcons have to be able to put good performance and start to stack those, like they talk about that in training camp, stacking the good days. Well, you have to be able to actually put the wins behind you as well in order to be able to then have a good performance. But it was great to see them bounce back from a bad performance as well. Again, not shocking to me, but we'll see how they can go forward from there. Maybe it's good for them to have, after this such a feel-good win, to kind of have a week to reset and kind of clear the slate before you have really tough games coming up against the Buffalo Bills and the San Francisco 49ers. Both those games will be in prime time. I know we're all looking forward to watching them. We'll be looking forward to see if the Falcons can, put in a performance similar to the one they did here at Mercedes-Benz Stadium today against the Washington Commanders, where once again they get to win 34-27. Thank you guys for listening. Watch us on YouTube, 929 The Game, or if you want the audio version of this podcast, just search Joe Patrick on Football wherever you get that. And you can follow me on X or Twitter at JAPatrick200 and on Instagram, even though just kind of put up clips from the podcast on there. So thanks for listening, guys. We'll talk to you soon.